Hey vinyl community, Mark from Sound Matters here with another video, and today I've just wrapped up doing a whole piece on the website about famous vinyl quotes, so quotes from famous collectors about vinyl records. I think it's pretty difficult to kind of think of another format that evokes so much kind of passion and enthusiasm in the same way that vinyl does, and I think that's pretty evident in just the amount of people that talk about vinyl in such a passionate way, and some of the things that many famous people, many famous collectors have said about the format over the years. So let's get straight into those. There's 10 of them. There's some really good ones in there, and I'm hoping that maybe you'll share some of your favourite quotes with me in the comments after this video. Number one on the list is none other than Jack White. So I don't think we could bring up any sort of list of vinyl record quotes without talking about Jack White. You know, some people love him, some people don't like him so much, but I don't think I can think of anyone that's been a bigger advocate in modern times, I think, for the vinyl format. And of course his label Third Man Records, very vinyl centric of course. There's no romance in singing about an iPod. I think kind of sums up our kind of passion here at Sound Matters for the ownership of music and the importance of actually owning the music you love. But the most prolific quote from Jack White really I think is this one. So, vinyl is the real deal. I've always felt like until you buy the vinyl record you don't really own the album, and it's not just a little pet thing or some kind of romantic thing from the past either. It's still alive. And I think that's very much true. You know, I think I don't really feel, I've certainly felt that, you know, when I surrendered all my CDs originally, you know, being the kind of age I am, CDs were the primary format for me growing up. But when I did submit and kind of went all digital files on my laptop, I was kind of forced to, because I moved kind of around between Canada and the UK for a little while, right? And I was kind of forced to consolidate my record collection down into just a list on iTunes, and suddenly the music just meant less to me. It was less prolific, I was less interested in it. Just actually owning the physical thing really makes a difference to kind of how you take the whole experience of the music as a complete package. And I think that quote sums that up perfectly for me, right? But he's gone on to say all kinds of things, right? So I prefer vinyl, he says here. We talk about this backstage. As musicians, it comes up a lot. It's a shame that new generations are missing out on albums. I don't know the timings of all these quotes, but I want to say that maybe happened maybe earlier than the kind of vinyl revival passion one, but all in all they're interesting quotes, and I think, you know, as an advocate for the format, I think Jack White's done a lot for the rebirth of vinyl over the last decade or so. Number two on the list is Grandmaster Flash, and I really like this one. It sort of really demonstrates how a passion for music can start at such a young age and then trigger an entire lifestyle and even career in this case, right? So he says here, my father was my first inspiration. He had an incredible stereo and turntable, and I was told not to touch it, but I'd go back and I'd touch it anyway. I gained a respect for the turntables when I was a kid, and when I was younger I came up with a queuing system to work turntables just because they didn't have one at the time. So, you know, he was almost born, I think, to be what he became, you know, which I think is a really nice quote in that regard. Number three on the list is Norah Jones. So I think, considering that Norah Jones kind of rose to fame during the height of Napster and all that sort of side of things in the early 2000s, I think it speaks volumes that she has such a passion for the physical format, and particularly vinyl. She says here, I think it's important for people who love music to retain physical CDs or even vinyl, because it sounds so great and so much warmer than music over the internet. I think not only does vinyl sound fantastic, but just owning a physical copy, as I said in the last comment, really is I think so important for the value and the complete experience of music. Next up is Quentin Tarantino, obviously the famous film director. So interestingly, he draws a lot of inspiration for his films from his record collection. And he goes on to say here, I'm a big collector of vinyl. I have a record room in my house, and I've always had a huge soundtrack album collection. So what I do is, as I'm writing a movie, is I go through all these songs, try to find good songs for fights and good pieces of music to layer into the film. So it's difficult to kind of think of, streaming or a Spotify playlist or whatever as having quite the same inspiration and being quite as inspiring as having a big library of music in your house that you can kind of draw inspiration from, and maybe you know intimately, and you pick out one piece and compare it with another and really delve into it and get some of that kind of early inspiration to improve a body of work. And it's really, I think, heartening to see that he involves the physical format of vinyl in his filmmaking process, and that's a really cool concept. Number 5 is none other than Neil Young. So obviously Neil Young in recent years has been a very big advocate of audio quality being an important thing, and did try, not quite so successfully, with the whole Pono music thing. However, I think his passion for audio quality and getting away from kind of just, heavy compressed MP3s and low quality streaming experiences has been noted, and I think speaks volumes in terms of his passion for music, his continued passion for music. But his quote here is actually in relation to Steve Jobs. So he says, Steve Jobs was a pioneer of digital music, but when he went home he listened to vinyl. And I think what Neil Young is obviously saying there is that as much as somebody could be a pioneer or something like that, when it really came down to their own listening experience, their own choice of what they did at home, although he was a big believer in technology, I think when it came to his own experience, he still couldn't quite move away from the full experience, the full meal, if you like, the non-junk food version of music that is vinyl. Amy Rollins is up next. So the former Black Flag frontman, of course, is well known for being a huge advocate of vinyl, and I really like the passion and sentiment behind this quote in terms of some formats being better company than others. So he says, sitting in a room alone listening to a CD is to be lonely. Sitting in a room alone with an LP crackling away, or sitting next to the turntable listening to a song at the same time by a 7-inch single is to enjoy the sublime state of solitude. Couldn't say it better ourselves, and I know which one I would rather do. Next up is a man that has always been a rebel and always liked to push the boundaries and always had a lot of passion and gritty kind of British earthiness, if you like, behind his demeanour, is John Lydon. So he says here, and he gets very obviously passionate about it, says, I hate the technological rip-offs that pass for music formats these days and go back to vinyl to hear a good record because the sound is always so much fuller, and I don't even listen to music in the car. I've always found listening to music in the car to be a state of convenience, but certainly when I want the whole experience, as I said earlier, the full meal, the non-junk food version of music, there's nothing quite like going back to vinyl. So I agree with him 100% on that front. Number 8, another famous Brit, Roger Daltrey, and I like this one in particular because it's kind of gone on to become true. His wish was granted, if you like. So he says here, if I was a billionaire and I had my time all over again, I would invest all my money in setting up a factory to produce vinyl records again. Well, fortunately, his call was heard, and there are several factories popping up on both sides of the Atlantic actually at the moment, and one in particular actually fairly recently just opened up, a brand new one that's opened up in Middlesbrough that I wrote about here, that says it's aiming to produce over 50,000 new records a week. So, I've said this before, there are obviously still supply chain issues and production bottlenecks that plague the vinyl community and the vinyl format. However, as the popularity continues and it becomes quite clear commercially that vinyl isn't going anywhere, that it's here to stay, and people have a commercial vested interest in making sure that we can still produce vinyl records effectively and without too much delay, then of course that's going to trigger new people to start new businesses, start new record pressing plants. And what we really need to get to grips with really is the kind of the plating side of things and the lacquers. There's a lot of that. There's only a certain amount of people that produce lacquers around the world, and of course the Apollo Masters Fire really did not help that situation earlier on in early 2020 when that fire broke out. So it's good though. I mean, Roger Daltrey, his prayers have been answered. There are people opening new vinyl pressing plants all over the place. If we can just sort out the entire supply chain on top of that, then we'll be getting somewhere. Next up is Josh Homme, number 9, and this is the Queens of the Stone Age frontman, of course, and he says here that vinyl has gotten to the point where it's exclusively for the collector, I guess. It's an interesting one, this one, because I think, yeah, it is for kind of collectors and for people that really want to get the best experience out of their music, I think. But I don't know, I think vinyl is here to stay. I think we all, as a vinyl community, can kind of agree that at least on some sort of niche level, vinyl isn't going to just suddenly disappear. And if anything, is outperforming CD at the moment and just proving itself to be, I think, the nicest way to actually own music. So in that sense, I guess it is for true passionate people who love music and would like to collect and own a copy of that music physically. In terms of that, there's no format like vinyl. For Depeche Mode's Martin Gore, the whole vinyl experience is clearly a complete one. As he goes on to say here, it was so exciting to go to a record store and buy a piece of vinyl and hold it, read the liner notes, look at the pictures, even the smell of the vinyl. So I think that's something a lot of us collectors can kind of relate to, is just that whole package, the whole experience, going to the store, getting the record, checking out the liner notes, getting home, taking it out of the packaging, really reading who was involved, who mastered it, who cut the lacquers, maybe even, all that sort of side of things. Then, dropping the needle on the record, sitting down, maybe having a nice drink with it or whatever. And the whole thing, right from the beginning to the end, is a complete experience that just vinyl is superb for. Okay, so we've actually gone one more than 10 for this list, and by no means least, and this is possibly my favourite quote of all time, and probably the most well-known quote about vinyl, is the one from John Peel, the famous surface noise quote. So, I think most of you will probably have already come across this, unless you're new to the whole vinyl experience, or new to the vinyl revival, if you like. And this obviously goes back some years, because John Peel, the late great John Peel, the man behind discovering groups like the Smiths and T-Rex, of course, once said, "Somebody was trying to tell me that CDs are better than vinyl because they don't have surface noise. I said, listen, mate, life has surface noise." I think, some people get very funny about kind of talking about surface noise. It's like, oh, you can reduce surface noise entirely and all this, that and the other. It's like, well, I don't know about entirely, but you can certainly reduce it down to a negligible level, right? But I do believe what John Peel's talking about here is the fact that something like vinyl not being so clinical like a CD is, speaks more to our very humanity. And I think that's what makes this a very profound and probably one of the best, if not the best quote about vinyl records. And as an advocate of the vinyl format, I think John Peel really hit the nail on the head as to why I love vinyl, so make of it what you wish, but that I think is possibly the best quote there is out there. So that's all we've got for time for today. I hope you've enjoyed the quotes in this list. As a little bonus at the end here, I have included the meme quote from the New Yorker cartoon, which I think a lot of you will have seen floating around. It does crack me up, and it's funny because it's true. The two things that really drew me to vinyl were the expense and the inconvenience. Well, it's certainly not a poor man's hobby if you want to get a great sound out of records. It's certainly not the most convenient way to listen to music, but I think it's the best way to listen to music. But if you can't poke fun at yourself every now and again, then what are we even here for, So I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks ever so much for watching, and please do leave a comment in the description if you know of any other vinyl quotes that you've heard that you particularly like, that you think we've missed off this list. Let us know down there. And thanks ever so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Keep spinning.